Early access is always a risk, no matter the game, and it's a risk for both the players and developers alike. Turns out that this has been extremely true for a space game called Starbase, a game which a couple of years back seemed very impressive and full of so much potential. Today, many players are claiming on reviews and other comments that, to all intents and purposes, the game has been abandoned. However, is that true? Well, let's jump in and find out what's been going on. So as you can see, Starbase went into early access in July 2021, so it's now nearly 2 years since it originally launched. What is the game all about? Well, it's a massive MMO type of game, set with thousands of players being able to play in singular zones and the ability to build not only their own spaceships, but also entire starbases as well, hence the name of the game. The economy and everything else was intended to be player-driven, with the ability to code your ships as well and create all sorts of other functionality. So, very impressive game with a lot of depth. Technically, it should have worked very good on a technical level, that is, with indeed thousands of players being able to play in singular areas, as we said. So, with all of this amazing potential, what went wrong? Well, it turns out that to all intents and purposes, if you read the latest reviews over on Steam, as well as some of the comments on the forums, players feel that the game has indeed been abandoned. And this comes off the back of news released a year ago. If we look at the Steam news page, this is also available on the game's official forums. We can see back in April of 2022, the developers posted this rather unfortunate news. Now, it starts out pretty good, saying that they're going to release a large update, which will release a load of content that they have been working on for quite a while, although it seems that content wasn't in a finalised state, but nonetheless, they did push that out. And then the big bomb dropped. They said, the reason for this rather sudden major update is that Starbase's sales performance hasn't been the strongest, and thus we need to prioritise other projects for some time in the interest of ensuring the game's continued development and long-term future. Starbase's server costs are so low that they aren't in any danger, but its development will be slowed down and updates will be less frequent for some time. While this is not ideal, we're looking forward to returning to development as soon as possible, reinvigorated and ready to make Starbase the game we all want it to be. Now, that was a year ago, and as you can imagine, at the time the community was divided. A good number of people were very disappointed, felt that the developers have abandoned the game, that the players were going to give up hope, that the player numbers would drop, and that this just wasn't a good sign of things to come. And then there was also the usual defenders of the game, who, or what you get on any community, was saying that, well, things are going to be fine. The developers have said they will be back. This is just a temporary pause. Everything's going to turn out fine. Just wait and see. Well, here we are a year later, and the game has not got any major updates. It's had a few fixes here and there, and indeed the player numbers have unfortunately continued to dwindle. Now, if we look over on the Steam charts, we can see that playing pretty much right now, playing an hour ago, we've got 36 players, and that the 24-hour peak is just 58 players. The average number of players over the past 30 days is just 40 players. In April, the average number of players was 41 players. So, yeah, these numbers are very, very low indeed, and not encouraging for a game that had so much potential. Naturally, a lot of players are not happy about this state of affairs. If you head on over to the Steam page, we can see that recent reviews are mostly negative and probably trending towards overwhelmingly negative in the coming weeks and the coming months. Just 27% of people leaving positive reviews, and a lot of this is, well, as you'd expect, people feeling that the game has been abandoned and that its massive potential has been lost. A very big shame. But is all hope truly lost? Are the developers going to return to the game? What does it mean for the game's future? Could Starbase once again resume development? Well, there hasn't really been much in the way of official news on that, but if we have a look at the Steam community, the Steam discussions, we can see that the developers have posted a few comments there. The most recent, pretty much the 3rd of January this year, so just a few months ago at this point. This one says, at the moment, it's hard to predict when and how Starbase development will continue. We are in a much better place than we were in May. We do have plans for lots of things, tutorials, instant single player or co-op content, NPCs, simply fixing and finishing stuff currently in game, obviously. But we obviously won't be able to pursue them all at once, not even if some crazy billionaire turns up tomorrow and offers millions for us to continue full tilt and expand as much as possible. So if you're asking where will the Starbase be in 6 months, it likely won't have changed much. Things just don't happen that quickly. So here we are, 4 months, 3 months? Yeah, 4 months since this was posted, and indeed things don't really seem to have changed, and there hasn't been any signs that things are going to pick up. Another post just a few weeks after that, the same developers saying they can't negotiate on behalf of the company, but due to getting anything significant done on Starbase will cost millions over several years. A team of several coders, at least 1 or 2 designers and an artist is minimum, so it seems they haven't even got a skeleton crew working on the game. And indeed, if you look through other comments on the forums from the developers, they say there's basically no one on the game at the moment. They more or less imply that, saying that the game is fortunate that it does maintain itself. And they did go on to say that even if the game did need a single full-time developer working on it, that may indeed cause problems. So, yeah, it seems things aren't looking too good for Starbase. And of course, if we look over on the forums here, let's have a look at the game discussion. We can see that, well, the forums also seem to be dead. The last posts coming in 2022 and just one in 2023 asking what the heck has happened. And the reply is given a summary of what we've gone through today. So unfortunately, Starbase is a cautionary tale for early access titles. Some early access titles go on to do tremendously. Valheim is a great example of one such title, as is Sons of the Forest, which made excellent use of early access. But both of these games were games that were in a pretty good state when they hit early access, and this does seem to be key. A lot of comments suggest that Starbase was fairly poor in its initial release into early access, and that seems to set the tone for things going forward. There are other games that have been in a similar position in recent months. Just take a look at Kerbal Space Program 2. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of the Kerbal franchise and wish all the best for Kerbal Space Program 2. And I know the developers are continuing to work on that and are very passionate about it as well. But the concern, of course, is with games that release in a poor state, like Kerbal Space Program 2, and to some extent, although lesser, Starbase as well, which didn't have a fantastic launch. Months later, years later, the developers have announced a pause and things just haven't resumed. So how do players take this? Is it just an accepted risk with early access? Is it just the way things go? I'm kind of divided on that. I think just so long as developers have full transparency, things aren't too bad. When you get messages like the one issued last year from Frozenbyte, the developers of Starbase, then things, well, they can be a bit of a problem, and they do feel quite a surprising, unfortunate turn. Now, another thing worth pointing out is that Frozenbyte may be a smallish developers, but they do have quite a few staff members working for the company. I believe around about 100, the last I knew, and they have worked on some very successful games, which include the Trine series. So they're not a developer who haven't got any experience. They do have experience under their belt, as well as some funds as well. Now, at any rate, pretty sad news indeed. Starbase is a game I was looking forward to see thriving. I really do feel it is a game that had massive potential and a huge amount of ambitions. It's possible that Frozenbyte will return to it in the future, but it has been over a year at this point since their announcement on a slowdown on development. We haven't heard anything really new since then. There has been a few minor updates, like I say, which include bug fixes, but generally speaking, the game hasn't seen any further progress over that year. Now, if things change, we will, of course, take a closer look at that again. I'll cover the game in the future if there's further news. Meanwhile, do let me know what you think. Do you think Frozenbyte should kind of remove the game from early access? Do you think they should remove the sales page or just put it back on wishlist again? Do you think they should put a notification at the top of this website to let people know that development has been paused? Or do you think everything's good and that they're really living up to their side of the bargain by constituting and working towards what is widely considered, by some people at least, the early access methodology? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for watching. and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.